You want to make some picks on your favorite sports? Check out Underdog's Fantasy Pick'em game, where you can pick higher or lower on between 2 to 8 players and can win up to 325 times your entry by using code Niners when you sign up, and you'll get $1,000 bonus cash and a free pick.
From the alley-oops at Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I haven't done a mock draft this entire offseason so far, and I've seen a ton of them out there. A lot of people are doing mock drafts, and that's great. And I love going through the process of a mock draft so I could start going through the thinking of maybe how the 49ers are thinking, processing some of the players that you like in each round as you get to each pick, and just kind of taking it as it goes. So that's what I'm looking to do in this one. It's going to get us more familiar with players in certain positions, players that we like in each round. And I think that's really important when you're looking at how this thing is going to play out. And of course, we know that the 49ers themselves will be doing mock drafts. They do things internally to try to figure out where players are going to be located. And that's exactly what we're doing as well, trying to figure out, hey, where are these guys going to fit? Who can we get in rounds 1, 2, 3? And if we get this guy in round 1, is that guy going to be available in round 2? It's all about kind of figuring out what your board looks like and then figuring out how you can navigate through to be able to pick up the players you ultimately want. Feels like the 49ers did a pretty good job last year. Ricky Pearsall in round 1, a lot of people question going wide receiver. But after that, you get Renardo Green in the second round. You get Dominic Pooty in the third round. They trade up to get him. You get Malik Mustafa in the fourth round. You get Isaac Garendo in the fourth round. And you're sitting there and you're like, you know what? We got some pretty good football players that we added to our roster, and what we did to get those players work. So mapping it out worked for the 49ers. And when it came to Isaac Garendo, right, it took 2 fifth-round picks to jump up to get him. And so kind of knowing where things are going to happen, where trends are going to happen, where a lot of players are going to end up going is one of the key factors. But really for this process right now and this point in the process of learning the draft, I really want to get into exactly who the players are that make the most sense at 11 and 43, 99, 112, 138, 139. As you continually go through this draft, you find the players in those areas. And full disclosure, when we get 2 weeks from now and we get into the combine, some of these things are going to change. There's going to be players that are workout warriors that are going to jump up. Perfect example of that last year was Xavier Worthy. He went from being a second round pick to being a into the first round pick because he ran a sub 4.340. Those types of things happen. You see players that maybe don't run as fast as you were hoping. A guy like Kamari Lassiter, the cornerback last year. I had a first round grade on him, but when he went to the combine, he didn't run fast, and that changed some things. The way people thought about him changed a little bit. Didn't think he could be one of those number one corners. So he fell into the second round, the Houston Texans, and did pretty good. So it's going to change a little bit of the direction of some of these guys and their fortunes. Senior Bowl already did that. We got guys like Darius Alexander, the defensive tackle from Toledo, jumping up majorly. We've got, other guys as well, offensive linemen that are jumping up. You got defensive ends like Mike Green that went from some people thinking he's an early 2 to thinking he could go as high as pick 11 to the 49ers. Like, it's just crazy how much these guys could jump just from working out on the field. So we're going to get into this. I'm curious how the board plays out. I'm going to be using PFN, Pro Football Network's Pro Simulator. I kind of like the way that their trades work and some of the other things. We'll try to mix it up as we go through. I'm not going to try to do a bunch of mock drafts. I'll do them here and there as things start to change, probably especially post combine, throw in another one, kind of change some things. Or even when I start evaluating players, my thought process starts and it changes. I think it was like mock draft 2 or 3 last year. And I did start late. I got to admit, I started later. that I went ahead and that was the first time I selected a wide receiver in the first round. I thought the 49ers were going to. I got the wrong wide receiver, though. I did not have Ricky Pearsall. I had Adonai Mitchell. I thought A.D. Mitchell made the most sense, could play X receiver, especially if something with Brandon Ayuk materialized as far as trade. I thought he made a lot of sense. And then I did go Renardo Green and I did go Dominic Pooney. So those are some things that, you can hit on. And I didn't go Renardo and Dominic Pooney in the same draft. I got to keep it clear. But I did go Dominic Pooney. I caught a lot of feedback for that. But it's a fun process because you can pick out guys like that. And we can kind of put guys on each other's radar that wouldn't normally be, right? Last year, everyone's talking about Graham Barton. Everyone's talking about, guys at the end of the first round, cornerbacks, which I liked a lot of them too. And then all of a sudden, you start hearing names like Dominic Pooney, and people are like, Dominic Pooney, why are you talking about a tackle? We don't need a tackle in the third round. We need somebody that can play guard. We need somebody that could step up and play, or we need somebody, hey, you see him as a guard, we need him as a tackle. There's all those conversations. So I'm really excited to get in all those. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you're listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. And if you're going to bet with Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, Bet Online is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA and college basketball to NHL and UFC, Bet Online continues to be your number one source for betting. From every three-pointer and hat trick, Bet Online has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. Bet Online, the game starts here. And just so everyone knows, I have been going through on my Patreon and doing in-depth breakdowns on a lot of players. Right now, I'm in the midst of going through some of my favorite players and breaking them down, no matter what the position is. And it's been a fun process so far. I just had a video come out about Chase Lunt, the offensive tackle from UConn, so go check that out. I've been breaking down guys that we're probably going to talk about in this, like Nick Scorton, the defensive end out of Texas A&M. So if you want further content, go check out Patreon. Check it out. Let me know what you guys think, but it's been a lot of fun. So we're going to get into this. We're going to go through the draft and see who we could draft. So let's get rid of my mug and get onto the simulator so you can see who's there. So of course you could see we've got, the first pick here is going to be Tennessee. We're going to let it run. I don't propose a trade up. That's not a method that I'm really interested in doing. I'm more interested in potentially moving back if that presents itself. So let's go ahead and let's see how this thing works out. Cam Ward, Shador Sanders, a little interesting there. There goes Abdul Carter. I'm expecting okay, so this is one of those times, and this is crazy. So if you were listening to the show that I did with John Chapman yesterday, we talked about a trade where Baltimore would come up to 11 and the value that you could get from it. And would you be willing to drop all the way down to 27 if you could pick up extra picks? And as you could see, you would get a tremendous value. There's a 600-point difference in Jimmy Johnson's trade chart. So hitting 59 and 91 and a second next year, and you give up 11 and 139 is absolutely tremendous, right? Everyone's making that deal. Here's the trade back as well, 15 and 46, which is a huge value. So let's look at the board real quick. And we all see Mason Graham here. And I would 100% run this one in if it was Mason Graham. But I want to keep this realistic, and I don't think Mason Graham is going to be there. So I'm going to omit Mason Graham on this just for the sake of the conversation about who we could potentially get. So definitely not going to go there. Now, there's a lot of players that I like right here. I do like James Pierce, the edge from Tennessee. I wonder how light he is. I think that's, a question mark. I don't think the 49ers are going wide receiver, so I'm going to ignore that. I think interior offensive line with Tyler Booker, this is a little too rich for the 49ers to go interior offensive line, even though they do have a need at left guard. Armand Membu, I think he's a solid right tackle in the league. I think, he would be solid. And as you can see, Kelvin Banks gone. Will Campbell gone, right? Some of the offensive tackles the 49ers might have been considering. But here we go. Derek Harmon, solid defensive tackle. Look what his rank, 20. We're picking at 11. Nick Emenwari, one of my favorite safeties in the entire draft, 21. Josh Simmons, who's coming off the knee injury. Here he is. Nick Scorton, guy that I think is a huge player. You know, you're talking 6'4", 280, but can move like a guy smaller than him. Sets a good edge. You see that. Walter Nolan is ranked at 29. Now, I do think Walter Nolan would go a lot higher than 29, but when I'm looking at my board and I see Mike Green down here and I see Jihad Campbell, I see that there's a lot of potential for us to trade back. I think that when you look at the trade offers, I think this one right here is a little wild right now. So I won't do that. So I'm going to keep it subtle. But I do think a trade back is a good method for the 49ers. So I am going to trade back, but I'm going to keep it to this kind of a realistic trade. Atlanta might be targeting an edge rusher. Maybe they want to move up for that. And I could see them wanting to move up 4 picks and the 49ers picking up pick 46, which could provide a lot of depth in the second round. Obviously, if I was a general manager, I would potentially take the Baltimore Ravens deal. It's just too much draft capital to pass up. But I think that right now I'm going to leave that one on the back burner, and I'm going to go to this one because I think it's the most realistic of the trades. I would love the other one, but let's keep it realistic. That's why also we're not drafting Mason Graham at 11. I just don't think he'll be there. Now, if something changes over the next several weeks, then we'll talk about it. But we are going to accept this. We're going to move back. I think there's a lot of players that you really like around 15, and you pick up 46, which is a huge advantage when you're talking about trade. So there goes Mason Graham. That's the reason they traded up. Now here you are. You're getting some more trade options, right? 25. I don't want to do too much trade backs, like, trade back, trade back. I mean, this is a tremendous amount of value. But now let's just go ahead and see what's on the board and how we progress from here. So Will Johnson is a very good cornerback. We've never seen the 49ers draft corner that high. I don't think as well that they would take Nick Amenwari, a safety in the first round. I do think Josh Simmons makes sense at 15. Here's Nick Scorton, which I really enjoy. And here's Walter Nolan, a defensive tackle. Now, I will say this. I think that there are some pretty good edge rushers in round 2. I think that there are a lot of great defensive tackles in rounds 2 and 3. So I think that there's value for the edge rusher here. Nick Scorton would make a lot of sense for the 49ers. Mike Green, I know he says he's 33, but he would make a lot of sense with that speed power combination. Both of those guys are phenomenal. I think right now, I'm going to cut it down to Nick Scorton and Walter Nolan. And most people are going to say, hey, take Walter Nolan. He's the defensive tackle that you really need. You don't necessarily have to have an edge. I think Scorton's a 3-down defensive end. Like, I think he could do fantastic. And maybe I'm overthinking this. Maybe, I'm taking it too far. But we picked up the other second-round pick. So I could go, as a Raku. I could go with one of those guys. Let's look at the edge real quick. See the guys that are going to be in the second round before I decide. So you see Scorton, right? You got Stewart, you got Jack Sawyer. Here's Ezraku, who I really like. So easily you could go with one of those guys in the second if you go ahead and you get your defensive tackle right now. I mean, that's part of the reason you have this conversation, right? Is these types of things right here. Scorton, or potentially go with, and I like going defense here instead of offensive tackle. And so that's what I would potentially do, is go with one of those guys. So we'll see what happens here with this pick. Let's see what I'm thinking here. And Walter Nolan is just so good. I like him a lot. But I'm going to go with my first method. I think you want a game changer off the outside edge. And I know this is probably not going to be what people like early, but I think the 49ers would value an edge guy here. I think if they traded back further, Walter Nolan would make a lot of sense. And he'll probably be the guy. Am I talking myself into Nick Scorton here? You know what? I'm going to go with the consensus here. I'm going to go with, I'm going to go with Nick Scorton. I got to do it. I just think he's that good. I'm going to be convicted on this one. Maybe the next one, I could be, go Walter Nolan. Let me know what you guys thought about this, going Scorton over Nolan in round 1. So here we go. We're going to let it roll and see where we go. And we see a lot of good players going. We still haven't seen, our guy go, our defensive tackle. We're seeing some of the guys come off the board. Here's probably where you could potentially see him go. There goes Walter Nolan, and the freaking Eagles got him. How about that? That's really ridiculous. That he potentially goes right there. There goes Andrew Makuba, the safety. So that is a killer as well. Here's another trade. I'm not really interested in checking out that trade. I want to pick at 43. Andrew Makuba just went. The good thing is here's Xavier Watts, right? Good safety out of Notre Dame if you're thinking safety. But I think we're looking at offensive tackle, defensive tackle, or offensive line. So here's Wyatt Millum. I like him a lot. Here's Gray Zabel, who's moved up everyone's boards, that's for sure. Donovan Jackson, who we know is probably one of my favorite players as far as offensive line. And we got Azare Thomas, right? We still got to get a defensive tackle. We know that. But we've got a couple of really good picks, and we've got some defensive tackles like Omar Norman Lott that I really like later that I think we can get that'll make a huge impact. And there's just, defensive tackles like crazy that we could get. We don't need an edge rusher now, so a guy like Ezeraku is not going to be, somebody that I would potentially go for now. So let's look at the defensive tackles that are still on the board. You got Deion Walker. We can still get him. TJ Sanders, Alfred Collins, Omar Norman Lott. I think he's an absolute beast. Joshua Farmer is pretty good. Darius Alexander, fantastic. You look at down here even further, JJ Pegues, really good. Aeneas Peebles, who was, I think, one of the better pass rushers in the draft. So I like a lot of the defensive tackles that are still available. So I think I see a need at left guard. And the question is going to be, do I take someone like Matt Millam here? Or do I take the guy that I have a consensus for in Donovan Jackson? I really like Donovan Jackson. I think he's going to be the pick. I'm going to plug and play left guard Donovan Jackson at pick 43. This would be the highest the 49ers have won interior offensive line since Aaron Banks. So it might be considered a little too rich. But I think he's a day one starter for the 49ers if they take him. I am very disappointed that Andrew Makuba is gone, but I'm going to grab Donovan Jackson here, and we're going to be right back up here. So there goes Xavier Watts. We could have picked up a safety. That didn't happen. Now, here's an opportunity to trade back. That is a good opportunity. You go back 6 spots, and you potentially go from 139, which is one of your comp picks, to 83, which is definitely more manageable and giving you an opportunity to get somebody else. So who are the guys that you're looking for right here that you wouldn't want to miss out on, right? You just went into your offensive line, so you don't have to go with Wyatt Millum. You don't have to go with Gray Zabel. You went edge rusher already. Here's a defensive tackle, Deion Walker, one of the biggest dudes in the entire draft. You could go there. There's a couple of corners you could go. You got Trey Amos right there. Maxwell Hairston, he's available. Here's Azare Thomas, who you might want to get your hands on. And I think that those are possibilities. So those are some guys you might want to hit on right here at 46. I do like this trade offer, though, and I'm going to take it from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to drop back 6 spots, and I'm going to exchange picks. To me, it just makes too much sense with the amount of players that are there. There goes Ezeraku. We're seeing some of the offensive linemen go, but we addressed it. There goes Trey Amos. We're not going to trade right here. And so we're going to make a pick, and we've got to decide who's the best player to go with right here. I think there are several guys that I like, but I want to get a cornerback normally I would have went Andrew Makuba right here, but he's already off the board. He went early. And I see Azare Thomas, who could be a first-round talent at corner, and he's sitting here, and I know that I went Renardo Green last year in the 2nd round, and if I go Azare Thomas, then I've already addressed the edge, I addressed the offensive line, and I've addressed a cornerback. And then I'm going to have to turn my attention elsewhere. But I'm going to go Azare Thomas, cornerback, Florida State, 6'2", 200 pounds, press man coverage, who has the ability to play zone. This dude is physical at the point of attack. I like him a lot, and I'm going Azare Thomas right there. So now we're seeing guys come off the board, and some pretty good ones. There goes a good linebacker in Swessinger, and we're going to be coming up here at 75, and we're going to have a couple of picks because of our trade back where we could potentially hit on a couple of guys here in the 3rd round that we might like. And so let's take a look at the board. I'm not going to go ahead and trade. I don't want to be too crazy with the trades. I just wanted to kind of keep it, this one would have been a one that I'd be interested in because you jump up. But let's just keep it normal. So that way we can still talk about 6-round picks and stuff like that later. So here's Deion Walker. A lot of people love him. Wide receiver gets a little bit interesting here. Here's Jaden Higgins. I do like Jaden Higgins. He's a guy that's big, 6'4", 210 pounds, but gets in and out of breaks like a faster wide receiver. I think he's a possibility with all the question marks about Deebo Samuel. I think Jaden Higgins would be a good pick. So that's a possibility. Here is Chris Paul Jr., a great linebacker. We've got 2 picks coming up here in the next few picks, 8 picks. We've got 75 and 83. And I see Chris Paul and I see Omar Norman Lott. And I love Omar Norman Lott. And we do have to address defensive tackle. And so the question is, do you go with Deion Walker if you're looking at defensive tackle, or do you go Omar Norman Lott? And they're 2 different kinds of players. Norman Lott is a penetrator. He's more of a 3 technique that's going to be able to get in the backfield and be disruptor, a normal 49ers target. The difference is he's bigger than most 49ers defensive tackles that they play 3 tech. Normally the 49ers 3 techs go pretty close to 6'1", about 300 to 305 pounds. Omar Norman Lott is 6'3", 315, and he could still move with an elite first step. That's a different type of player than Deion Walker, who's mainly mass, big mass, who can't be moved and is a little bit of a run stopper, where he doesn't really give a lot of penetration when it comes to pass rush. I think Omar Norman Lott is a more complete defensive tackle and more of a fit for the 49ers. So I'm going to go Omar Norman Lott. I passed on the defensive tackle in round 1. I'm not going to pass on a guy that I believe should be ranked higher than 81 in Omar Norman Lott. I would not be surprised to see Norman Lott go in the 2nd round. That's how much of a fan I am of him. So I'm going to take Omar Norman Lott at pick 75 for the San Francisco 49ers. Wow, we just seen Cam Scatterbo go. There goes Jaden Higgins. So no risk. There goes Chris Paul, which is a little bit frustrating. Potentially you could have went there. I would have definitely been interested in going linebacker in this pick. So now I'm going to have to take a look around. I still need another defensive tackle if there's one there. Here's an interesting guy right here, Elijah Arroyo. Potentially, I think he's, a position they could go to when you're looking at tight end. And this is kind of one of those places to go tight end. But we've got to address a few positions. Here's Anthony Belton. We went guard. Could we go offensive tackle? That's definitely a possibility. Here's Jared Wilson. We went interior already. Ozzie Trapillo, if we want to get outside. Here's an interesting tight end as well. Aronde Gadsden, a guy that can play in space, make a lot of catches. So we're getting kind of down here. Quincy Reed, I like him at corner. We did go corner earlier. Here's Derek Alexander. And I think Darius Alexander, this might be a little rich for him as far as this particular mock. But I honestly think this is probably where he ends up going, is pick 83. I think there's a real chance he goes this high. I like him a ton. So I don't know if people would freak out if I took him this much ahead of normally where he would go. I just think that I do like a lot of these guys, and I could easily grab one of these tight ends, get a big time tight end like Elijah Arroyo. But let's look at the tight ends real quick. I still like a lot of these guys that are in here. I think when you're talking about athleticism, Arroyo would make a lot of sense. But as far as some other stuff, I think that he's not as good of a blocker. Ashton Gillette, I like him as a pass rusher, but I don't need to go pass rusher. I need interior defensive tackle. I need offensive tackle. I need safety if there's a guy. Here's Billy Bowman. That is a distinct possibility. We could go Billy Bowman here. I like him as a safety. I think he does a pretty good job, and that would make a lot of sense. I do not want to, miss out potentially on getting Darius Alexander, but I do have pick 99, which I could go with, and so I could wait and go ahead and get him later. So maybe I take a chance and get a skilled player here for Kyle, or it's coming down to basically Elijah Arroyo, who I really like, or Billy Bowman, the safety. Now I could always just, hope the 49ers address safety already in free agency. Kind of look at it that way. A lot of people would go Anthony Belton here, and I get it. I get it, but I think I'm going to go Arroyo. Let's go athlete. Let's get a tight end that could play with George Kittle. We picked up an extra pick in this draft. A couple extra picks. Let's go ahead and spend it on some guys and get some weapons as well. Even though we got to address defensive tackle and we've got to address other positions, we have the picks to do it. Let's have fun. So there goes Billy Bowman. So he's no longer an option. I'm not going to look at the trade. I know where I want to go. I want to get the second defensive tackle, and I want a guy that's going to be aggressive, that's going to make plays. Just looking at Darius Alexander, 6'4", 304. I brought that up earlier. That's what the 49ers are looking for, that type of player. He's got the handwork. I mean, this is going to be a freaky player. You put him and Omar Norman-Lott as part of the rotation. It's wonderful. And what's crazy is there's still so many other guys like I brought up earlier. Aeneas Peebles, JJ Pegues. There's a lot of guys that are available that you like. But I'm going to go with Darius Alexander here. And we've got two defensive tackles, an edge rush, and an offensive guard already. Still wouldn't mind going offensive line again. There goes Anthony Belton, so he's not going to be available. Potentially there's another guy that I like, and I know there is. So I'm going to look for him, and this is kind of that time to look for him. Here's an interesting guy, though, too, by the way. Jordan Phillips. He's an interesting player. So we could keep an eye on Jordan Phillips in this draft. Really no production at Maryland. Young guy. He probably should have went back. But, I mean, that's a guy that's got a lot of ability and a big dude. But here he is right here. Chase Lunt. I'm looking for a developmental offensive tackle. And he's got it. So he's 6'8", 304 pounds. And full transparency, he needs to put on more size. He needs to put on 15 to 20 pounds of muscle without losing his athleticism. But the guy in the open field is fantastic. I mean, this is that elite run blocker in the second level that you're looking for from an offensive tackle in the outside zone scheme. So I like Chase Lunt a lot. I love his hips, the way he turns guys. He's got a lot of fluidity. He's got good ankles, good bend in his knees. He's got to get a little bit better with his anchor, but he's got the speed and lateral quickness that I think you need to play offensive tackle. I don't think he's a left tackle in the NFL. I do think he's a right tackle in the NFL. But I do think he could be an eventual replacement for Colton McKivitz. And we're a year away from potentially needing that. I do think he could play inside if needed. The athleticism is there in every way possible. Big dude, tremendously athletic, fits the scheme. We want to address the trenches, and we got a guard earlier. Let's get an offensive tackle. Chase Lunt, the pick at 112. And, I don't know how many people are high on him, but I definitely am. I'm really high on him because I think he fits what they're going to be looking for as far as run blocking. He's a developmental pass protector, but this is a guy that could be a guy that swing tackle if you needed him to. A lot of ability, and I mean athleticism. It's crazy to say, but he might be, the second most athletic player behind Trent Williams on the entire team. Now here we go. We get to 138, and we traded 139 earlier. So we're only going to have one pick in this area. So here you see Danny Stuntsman. I like him, linebacker. So Jeffrey Bossa. Ooh, that's a good one, right? We already went to, defensive tackle twice. Here's JJ Pegues, who would be a very solid pick as well. I think that there are some guys here. I like Bossa. Here's Aeneas Peebles, who I was bringing up earlier. This dude reminds me of a Javon Hargrave type, the speed rush, the pass rush ability. I wonder how good he'll be when it comes to holding up against the run. That's probably a big question mark. So I seen Bossa there, and I do like Bossa, the linebacker out of Oregon. I think he's got really good instincts and good size. He's definitely a possibility. You see him right here. I wanted to look at who else was available at linebacker. Oladejo's not playing linebacker unless it's outside linebacker. So, some of the guys went, that you potentially like at linebacker. You do have to address linebacker in this draft. We already went corner. We already went edge. We went defensive tackle. We went offensive tackle, offensive guard. Linebacker is probably the need, especially if you're looking at the team needs right here. I mean, that's what it literally says. O tackle, done. Guard, done. Corner, done. Edge, done. Linebacker, we haven't done that yet. And I know we wanted to get a safety, but I'm hoping they address it in free agency and we can move on. So I'm going to draft Jeffrey Bossa, linebacker, Oregon, here with the 4th-round comp pick. And I think it's tremendous value. I would have loved to have gotten, somebody earlier. Chris Paul would have been a good one. I would have liked him, but we're gonna go ahead and go with Jeffrey Bossa here. I think there's tremendous talent, and maybe I'll find a late round guy with a tremendous upside I could go with later in the draft as well. But now we go linebacker. Hey, let's keep it. We're either trenches or we're in that front 7 with a lot of these picks, and that's where we wanted to stay. So we got a little bit of time. We're not going until 189. And I don't want to trade up. That's not something I'm interested in doing, and so we'll see what happens when we get to 189. Yeah, there goes Noel Williams. I like him as a corner. If I wanted to get a second corner, later, he would have been a guy I was interested in. There goes JJ Pegues. That's a good player. So we've got some talented guys still here in round 5. Simeon Barrow, Jack Nelson. That's one of my guys. I do like Jack Nelson a lot, offensive tackle. I think he could move inside, even though he's really big, strong. He wins on the point of attack. We're getting close to the pick here, and we've addressed most needs, right? So here's Oladejo if you want to go edge again. So I want to see who's best. Now, we've talked about this before, and I brought him up earlier. Aeneas Peebles is one of my favorite guys. 6 foot, 289. He's a undersized defensive tackle. So you got to remember that. So I do have 2 defensive tackles. I don't have to take him. I just want people to know that I like what he does. Now, Upton Stout, another good cornerback possibility if you're looking for someone there. This is also the range where if you're looking to get another running back, you could do that. So potentially you look there. If you want to go tight end, we went tight end earlier, but we could easily add Luke Lachey, who's more of a dual threat tight end. The fact that he's still here makes him a real option, I think, to potentially go with. So I like him a lot. Jackson Hawes as well. Tyler Beatty, edge rusher. I don't think you need to go edge. I think when you're looking at the board, here's Trevor Etienne, which I can't believe he's still on the board. That's tremendous value at running back. I think there's some good players still available, that you could potentially go with. But I love the fact that we could double up on tight end, and I see a lot of talent in getting Luke Lachey, who's a different style of tight end. 6'6", it says he's 6'5", 245 pounds. I mean, the dude's got a lot of ability. He's, awesome here in the 3rd round. With better quarterback play, he could have easily been a day 2 pick. I think he's too good to pass up on. I'm going Luke Lachey, tight end, Iowa. Let's just stick with those Iowa guys. And I know it could have easily went with the running back or somebody else. Next pick's going to be in the 220s. And, potentially you want to make sure you can address your needs. So when it gets there too, I want to make sure, I think I might have traded away. I want to make sure I didn't trade away 255 so I can make a decision here on the last pick that is best for our last pick. Because there is somebody that I'm high on that is kind of flying under the radar. There goes Trevor Etienne. If he would have been available, I would have been really tempted to go with him with my next pick. I think he's a very talented player and really shouldn't be this far. So, let's see what my picks. It does say that I have another pick available at 255. So let's go ahead and look to see who's here and available. So we've got, now we're starting to get into, some of the Jackson Hawes would normally be a guy you target, but we already got 2 tight ends. Cody Simon, we could definitely go linebacker again, but there's another guy that I'm really interested in. Jason Marshall, I like him. Now, here's an interesting running back. The 49ers met with him, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, and I do like the way he runs. I might end up going running back at this point. I kind of like going value with running back. There are still some really good players available. Here's Finchel Cypress if you want to go corner, but it looks like by this, him and Carson Bruner, you could get them as undrafted free agents. And I think there's probably a couple guys you could get as undrafted free agents. So I'm looking, and maybe Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt is going to end up being an undrafted free agent for the 49ers, but I'm in with getting him right now. I mean, you look at the size 5'10, 206, and he runs like he's 220 pounds. He just fits. He just fits. So I'm going to take the Corey Krosky Merritt as the pick 228. And I'm going to kind of wait for this thing to lay out. And I when I'm looking at the last pick, it's got to be somebody that can help you on special teams. I always like to get somebody with an elite trait or somebody that can help you on special teams. So hopefully, there goes Efton Chisholm, who I do like, the wide receiver, is finding somebody that fits in special teams wise, but can really help your football team. So it needs to be safety, corner, linebacker. So here's Shiloh Sanders. I don't know if I want to touch him. So I want to look at defense. I want to look at linebackers and see who's available. Here's Carson Bruner. I think that is a real possibility. Here's a guy that I don't know why he's ranked right here. I don't know how many people are watching Chandler Martin, 5'11, 233, undersized from Memphis. But this dude just, I mean, he goes. He's fun. So, I mean, there's a couple guys. Chandler Martin, Carson Bruner, I think those are options. When you're looking at this last pick, a guy that can help out. You're looking at the cornerbacks. I mean, nothing really special. I haven't got too deep into all of my cornerback looks, so we're starting to get out of my scope when it comes to cornerbacks. Safeties, I have looked at some of these guys, but you know what? I think I'm going back to linebacker. We'll look at defensive tackle just to see if someone passed. You know, a guy like Yaya Black. You know, he's got some talent. I mean, there's some guys, but we went two already. Edge, no, not anyone right now. Offensive line, I don't think we need to go offensive line. Maybe wide receiver. I think we can get these guys in undrafted free agency. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go linebacker, and I'm going to choose between Carson Bruner out of Washington, 6'1", 223. Once again, undersized. Or I can go with Chandler Martin, 5'11", 233. And you know what I'm going to do? I want Chandler Martin. This dude's an absolute banger. He flies around. He lays people out. He's got a knack for getting to the football. I don't understand why he didn't get invited to the combine. This dude is got skills, and there's no way he's not going to get drafted. I would be really surprised. I mean, I have been wrong before, but I'm going to take Chandler Martin as the guy and conclude the draft. And we just got a dude that can fly around and make plays. I'm a huge fan of that pick right there. And Shiloh Sanders goes last. So here is the draft, and I'll download it. And if you want it, I can post it. That's for sure. So remember that. And then let's talk about this. So this is what we ended up doing in the draft. We traded back, and we selected Nick Scorton at pick 15. That got us an extra pick, which was pick 46. Okay. Well, we took Donovan Jackson, so we went edge and we went offensive guard, plug and play guard out of Ohio State, who had played some tackle, but is mainly known for his time at left guard. 49ers need a left guard, and I think Donovan Jackson could come in and compete for that potential. Azare Thomas, we traded back, and we were able to get Azare Thomas. He's available. You look at Omar Norman Lott. So Omar Norman Lott we got, and I know it might be kind of scary for a lot of people to see us potentially wait until the third round to go defensive tackle, but I think because it's so deep, you have the opportunity to do so. And I feel like we got a second round talent in the third round with Omar Norman Lott. I think he's got a lot of potential. Since we had a couple of trades, we went ahead and used some of that draft capital on a pass catching tight end in Elijah Arroyo, who showed out at the Senior Bowl. It shows a lot of promise. And yes, I know it's scary taking a tight end in the third round after what happened with Cameron Latu and Braden Willis, but we did double up on tight end again, hoping that we hit on one of these guys or both. And I think both the guys we got are pretty talented. Darius Alexander at pick 99. I love the combination of him and Omar Norman Lott. Lott a little bit bigger at 6'3", 315. Darius Alexander 6'4", but like 304. Both guys 3 techs, but penetrators. You got Chase Lunt, the offensive tackle, hyper athletic, fits the system, developmental, could take over for Colton McKivitz in the future. Jeffrey Bossa, the linebacker out of Oregon, You need depth at the position, and you get a guy with good instincts that can go in there. He's good at sticking his nose in there and making plays, and played at a top program inside the Big Ten. Luke Lachey, tight end out of Iowa, 6'5", 250 pounds. Dude probably would have been a day 2 pick if it wouldn't have been for the quarterback situation at Iowa. And I think he's still got a lot of talent there. A big time pass catcher who can also block. I like him as a help to the 49ers tight end room. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who the 49ers have met with at 228, running back, Arizona, MVP of the East-West Shrine game, and he packs a lot of punch, 5'10", 206, but he runs like he's 220, and I love the contact balance, the way he breaks tackles. To me, this is in the round that we got him. Makes a lot of sense. And then Chandler Martin, the linebacker from Memphis, and the 49ers went linebacker. They go linebacker late. We've seen Jalen Graham. He was a 7th round guy. Last year was Tatum Bethune. Now Chandler Martin, a guy that you're hoping can make your football team, but can also help you when it comes to special teams. So that was the mock draft. And let me know what you think. I'm sure it wasn't perfect, and you would do things differently, and that's usually how it goes. I love that conversation. So let me know what you would do differently. Let me know what you think about the players that we ultimately selected, because it's always interesting to have that conversation. And I'm sure the mocks are going to be different. I'm also going to take different approaches in other drafts. So there might be times where I go a Walter Nolan instead of an edge rusher, and I might take an offensive tackle. And I want to see how it plays out as I work through the lens of different players in different rounds, so we can get more familiar with these guys. But just like always, you want more breakdowns, go over to Patreon. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening to audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. And this episode is brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.